Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show, bringing another really fascinating guest today involved in creating a better tomorrow for so many people around the globe. Today, we have the honor of being joined by Dr. Rovshan Muradov, who is the Secretary General of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, which is a leading international cultural organization. He's based in Baku, Azerbaijan, and the organization is aimed at promoting dialogue, understanding, learning, and tolerance across the globe. He's also a fellow of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences, a board of governance member of East Westbridge, another really interesting think tank that's focused on areas like prevention of radicalization, xenophobia. But he is really the driving force behind the huge success at his organization of the Baku International Forum, which ultimately assembles dozens of current and former heads of state, government, and literally hundreds of academicians from all over the world to get together and solve critical issues of our time. Dr. Muradov studied international economic relations at the State Economic University in Azerbaijan, got a master's degree, later was accepted for a doctoral program in political sciences. He's also studied here in Boston at Cambridge College, Sterling University in Edinburgh, and also in Tbilisi in Georgia, University of Georgia. He was nominated to represent Azerbaijan at the United Nations General Assembly as a youth delegate. He was one of the only ones of those serving for a full 4-year term. And he also founded the largest student youth organization in Azerbaijan with over 17,000 members. And Dr. Muradov, over his career has interned at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Communications, Information Technology, State Committee on work with Diaspora. He has lectured, all over the globe on a variety of topics, written books on topics including the economics, the Caucasus regions, cultural and historic views of the region, Azerbaijan. A lot of really interesting topics to get into today. We're honored to have him with us now. Dr. Rovshan Muradov, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to come on your show.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and for making research and checking about our institution and what job is our organization is doing.
Yeah, it's an amazing organization. We've been honored here to have a couple of your members on the show talking about issues. Obviously, what you're doing is much broader in scope. I would love to start off, as we typically do, by giving you the microphone for a little bit, just to talk a little bit more about you. I mean, you a little bit about your background and how sort of you took this early interest in economics, specifically economics of the Caucasus, and sort of parlayed it into something a lot larger.
Actually, because at that time it was a trend issue, to study economic and especially international economic relations. But definitely my always passion was about the politics and about international relations and the world order and multilateralism and the different issues that was concerning everyone. And it came up that I had a good mentors, President Vladimir Freiberger, our current co-chair, and Ismail Sergildin, who is a founding director, librarian of Alexandria. And with these two amazing personalities, we could be able to come up with an idea of establishing a foundation, an organization dedicated to the legacy of a great Azerbaijan poet, Nizami Ganjavi. And why we choose Nizami? Because Nizami was a poet who lived in 12th century, and who was a very well-known personality who been an inspiration for thousands philosophers and thinkers and writers, from Shakespeare to Goethe and the different personalities. And he been writing about the love and the tolerance, about the dialogue understanding. And we've been also proud, and especially it was touching that at 12th century, a philosopher was promoting the religious tolerance, that the Christianity, Jews, and also with Muslims, they have to live together in a peace and prosperity, but also promoting a women's rights, which was very special for us. And it came up that we created this foundation, and so far, slowly, this organization brought up together. For today, we have more than 100 former president, prime ministers, and ministers for affairs that they are coming on an annual base on a different activities that we're doing. And our activities also includes all the issues that what's concerning the world today. We are very much engaged with Ukraine crisis, war in Ukraine, and in a crisis in the Middle East and the conflict, how we can be more helpful, and also women's rights, impact of COVID to education. And we've been one of the founders of the Lancet Commission, COVID-19 Commission, with Rockefeller Foundation, and also our members be very much engaged with the World Health Organization and United Nations AIDS program on the People's Vaccine Alliance, in order to promote about importance of vaccination and importance that we have to take care about mental illness, and how it impacted the huge communities on education, and how we can be more helpful with African region, continent, because that's a massive part of the world that we have to understand better, and also getting better understanding China, and building a bridge between China and East and West, and the One Belt Road Initiative, and the Silk Way, and all of these initiatives, which is coming up in the interest of our members, based on their background and based on their political interest. And that's why our activity has been growing up on a daily basis, and we are now where we are. And as you mentioned, we are hosting annually a Global Baku Forum, which is our flagship event.
Yeah, it's once again, and I encourage everybody listening and watching this episode to go, and we'll put the links in the bio to Nizami Ganjavi International Center, and see sort of the scope of, you have an amazing set of thought leaders, presidents, prime ministers, ambassadors, Nobel laureates, religious leaders. Talk a little bit, because, I'm sitting here on the East Coast of the United States, and, in our political system, we have term limits, and we're familiar with, whether it's the president or governors, what have you, there's a certain amount of time in office, and then it ends. And clearly, you always sit back and you wonder, well, they obviously have a lot more to contribute. And you clearly saw this, because it seems, I don't need to define it that you have your own little United Nations there, but you really do. Talk about what it was like assembling this team, because clearly, it's everybody, and clearly they want to still contribute beyond, they've reached this epitome of whether they're a president or prime minister. They want to keep going. Talk about what it's been like organizing this amazing, cohort that you have there.
The most interesting part of our work is that our institution nowadays, all the members are feeling like they are in a family relations. And I was meeting one of our members recently, and he was saying that, it's so fun that you are joining the table, and after 10 minutes you are making fun and you are enjoying the discussions, and you feel like everyone is familiar, and everyone is really concerned about the current issues. Most importantly, because all these former leaders and former prime ministers, ministers, they had a huge experience and a background on resolving their country's issues, on being part of these negotiations on Palestine-Israel issue, or different negotiations, signing peace treaties, and the economical crisis, like Gordon Brown was one of the front runner for solving this global crisis in World Economic Forum. And all of this G20 meeting, G7 meetings, and all of these people used to have a huge background. And what we wanted to do is to be able to use this background and to have their background to be delivered to a younger generation, but also to the current politicians. Because you have to always appreciate what's been what's capacities they have. And that brought up us with an idea like, let's do a conference on political discussions and on issues which is really concerning everyone. We do discuss US-China issue. We do discuss future of Africa and NATO enlargement and Ukraine future. And it was also very important that we had once a group of members, and including Kerry Kennedy, who was part of your interviews, traveling to the refugee centers in Poland and in a different Moldova and in Romania and other places, visiting refugee centers where we had the Ukrainian refugees, and playing and talking with the children and trying to help, socially to adapt them to a society, and also bringing up a solidarity, but also mobilizing international community in order to be more helpful. And that's really important. And because there are a dozen issues that they can be social media or interviews, their daily life activities, which is every person has a huge community. And their impact, their message always can be delivered to part of the society, which always can be really very helpful.
And again, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking poorly on the American sort of public schooling system here, but I guess we get very little exposure in history and geography to the Caucasus, other than here it is on a map. You're in Baku. It is at a crossroads of cultures, of religions. The city itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Just for the audience here, especially the American audience that's watching this and may not be able to point out Azerbaijan on a map, talk a little bit about because we're just finishing up on the 10th of the Baku forums earlier in March. Talk about Baku. Talk about sort of the environment as it pertains to the conference, and we'll get into some of what was going on at this year's conference in a little bit. But just say a few words about it so we can really appreciate why Azerbaijan and why Baku.
Because Baku is located in the middle of east and west, and how we call it's a window and a door for the east to west and for west to east. And traditional Azerbaijan being a part of the Silk Road project initiative, which was from the ancient China, India, and Afghanistan and Pakistan, whatever they've been called at that time. And it always brought a huge culture and huge experience and knowledge and wisdom of generations. And that's why there was an accumulation of a huge history in this part of the world. Baku is one of the most magnificent cities, I have to say. And they always calling it Paris for the east part of the world. And it's very much developed. And it's a majority is a Muslim country, but with a huge respect to the tolerance of Jewish community and to the Christian community and to other religions, because the best initiative and the best political decision of the country and the people was to divide politics and the religion from each other. And that's why I think that it made the country to be really developing a lot. And as you know, Azerbaijan is one of the major country which was used to produce oil and gas at that time. And as we have the dozen issues culture, heritage, and one of the most amazing carpet making the history. And the people are very kind and very hospitality. And there is also very nice cuisine that everyone will love to enjoy it. And that's all about Azerbaijan. That the way you can see that there is a mosque and there is a church and there is also a synagogue that existing next to one street from each other, and everyone is respecting. That's how we've been used to be taught by our parents. The first time when I even came up to my parents asking if I'm Sunni or Shia, in a Muslim community that you are divided in two parts. And my dad and my mom was telling me that they don't know, and actually why I have to care about it, because that also gave us when I go to Greece, when I used to live in Greece, I was going to church for praying to the God, and when I was visiting Israel and Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, I was going to synagogue. And which is bringing you have to be always just whatever name you are calling God, Allah, and so on, but it should be in your heart. And I think that's one of the best part of the country. And Azerbaijan also used to be and is still the first Muslim country in the world giving the rights for women to elect and to be elected in 1918. And it's the first country in a Muslim world and east part of the world which wrote a opera, and which is huge traditional in a culture, in a history, and in all the ways. And that's why, and definitely it's a birthplace of Nizami Ganjavi, and that was the reason why our headquarters is based in Azerbaijan.
Outstanding. I thought we could just talk a little bit about some of the sessions at the recent forum, just to give the audience a sense for the scope of the type of themes that you've been focusing on. I mean, the general theme of the conference this year was the world today, challenges and hopes. And I thought we just sort of drill down on some of the different sessions per some of the guests that we've jointly had, or that you have in your organization, which I've had on the show here. And I thought it was quite interesting that in one hand, in the session on the age of mega threats, where you're discussing things like climate security, food security, nuclear security, Dr. El-Wafi was there from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. We just had a wonderful show with her. And then in the health session, interestingly, Dr. Najat Makhtar from the Atomic Energy Agency, who was a fascinating person, because you think of nuclear science, but she's a biologist and she focuses on health mainly. I thought it was a really neat intersection there between the two. Talk a little bit about those two sessions, if you would, and some of what was discussed.
I mean, generally, what we are trying to do always in a Global Baku Forum is to try to bring up the major Eurasia region, let it be China, let it be food security issues, and everything that is going to be concerning everyone. And definitely mega threats. What was one of the panels, especially panel one was Kerry Kennedy, which building resilience in a divided world and its impact to the world peace, and which brought up very prominent personalities like Vairavika Freiberga, former Prime Minister of Norway, former Prime Minister of Slovakia, President of Switzerland, and Kerry Kennedy as well. And sitting president of Republic of Latvia, who gave keynote remarks, which mainly, and also we had Shirin Ebadi, Nobel Peace Laureate from Iran. And it focused on two parts. And the major part was about the Ukraine crisis and Ukraine war, and how it is destroying international law and international regulations. Because there is so far it's the first time that one country is invading independent separate country, and which is Russia been occupying and invading Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And another case was what Shirin Ebadi brought up. It's a situation in Iran about the women's rights and about the human rights, and about because you know that Azerbaijan has a unique part is we do have more than 30 million Azeris living in Iran. About age of mega threats, what Dr. Ismahan and everyone was bringing up, that we do have a major crisis on food security, and a climate change is really making a catastrophic change to the world, because there is a migration as well as it's impacted, because when people are starving and they don't have the lands are getting not usable, they are trying to move to more European part of the world and to other parts. And also what we face are earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, which was it impacted millions and millions of people. And there is a sanitation, there is a water resources which is limited, getting more limited than before. And energy security, also a nuclear security, because what we know in Ukraine, it's one of the major issues that it's concerning entire Eurasian region. That if it may happen, what impact it's going to have to the entire world. And about World Health, about 5 pillars panel about World Health Organization and health issues. Because you know that this year is World Health Organization is going to celebrate its 75th anniversary.
Yep.
Since its founding. Actually, it's going to be on Friday, as it was declared their creation. And World Health Organization, how an international organization can respond to this kind of crisis. And really, in most of the opinions, that World Health Organization could be able to make a championship, a leadership in this position, especially Dr. Tedros, that mobilizing resources, mobilizing international community, and being open to the discussions, but also using, because COVID brought us something uniqueness, because it made our life to be suffered. And we all been impacted badly about COVID-19. But it also brought up a challenge to the world community, that there is a big crisis on, and there is a big gap on health issues, because not every single country is in capacity to provide health issues. And the health system is not so unique, and it's not so well designed so far. And that's why we need to create a global health governance, in order to have a mobilized resources, and mobilize resources in order to be able to respond to this kind of issues, because COVID-19 is still going on, and it will be continued with now there is a created long COVID, and after long COVID-19 it will be different viruses, because we saw that humanity is vulnerable to this. And another issue which United Nations AIDS program, Winnie Byanyima brought up, about HIV and AIDS issues, because in Uganda there was a parliament that passed a new law which was banning gay rights and LGBT rights, which was really damaging to the HIV issues, and how it's going to be impacting to the international, the whole African region. That was another issues, and I think that another 2 important panels was Middle East panel, where we had really interesting discussion, because you never can see Arab people like Amr Moussa, His Royal Highness Prince Turki El Faisal, and Abdulaziz Al Twajer from ISESCO, and also former Prime Minister of Israel Ehud Olmert, and the current Minister of Intelligence of Israel, discussing in the same panel about the future of the Middle East. Because it's an ongoing situation, a crisis for decades, and we have to face up that there is a real problem, and how we can solve this issue, how we can impact to the decision-making process, because we can't hide ourselves from these real realities. And I think that another important issue was Africa, and geostrategic importance of the African region, because African region with its natural resources, and also with a population, and in comparison with other regions, continents, Africa is a young generation, mainly almost 60-70% of the African region is below 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's growing up. And with education, with the healthcare issue, with the economy, how it's going to be impacting to the entire world. And that's another important issue. And I think that overall, we never expected to have so many participants, but we had more than 400 guests coming from 61 countries. And out of them, almost 55 former sitting and former president, prime minister, and ministers of foreign affairs. Because the importance of this discussion is that everyone is free, because sometimes what we are always saying is that former presidents are not not obeyed with the rules that they can't speak what they wanted to speak.
Yeah.
And they are free to say whatever they wanted to say. And they can be really very powerful source and powerful messengers. And that's why we need to use this as much as possible.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed, and again, I've spoken with Dr. Teray and then Dr. Garib Fakim, and here you have, as you were explaining with the Africa session, you have Senegal and Mauritius, which could be further apart on the globe, but nonetheless working together for sort of these unified Africa themes per economic development, per women's rights, and so forth. So it's amazing what you're putting together there. I wanted to ask because you brought up about the youth, you just talked about the African continent, but in general, as I mentioned in the bio, you've had this very important part of your career in organizing youth, in organizing students. And clearly, they're the future. They need to continue, on these paths that you're laying out here. What is the role of sort of youth, the next generation, in your organization? Are there programs? Is there a sort of a Baku forum just for the youth? What are you doing on that front?
Mainly, the most important issue is that in our office, in our secretariat, everyone is below than 30 years old, beside me. Everyone is below than 30 years old, which is everyone came up to the office, our secretariat, as young volunteers, and they've been started growing up. We do have a young leaders program, which is chaired by Ms. Katerina Yushchenko, former First Lady of Ukraine. And every year we are bringing around 16 to 18 young leaders from all over the world. We are trying to have equality in the regional level, to have from China, from America, and also from Africa, and especially from Eurasian region. And they are dividing themselves in different groups, and they are discussing based on their experience and based on their interests. They are dividing themselves in 4 or 5 groups, and then they are making connections with former leaders or current leaders, because we believe that young people need to have this kind of resources and this kind of mentors as a former president, because they can be motivation and also inspiration for them. And our young leaders we have now a big alumni, which is we are doing this young leaders program, I believe, for the last 6 years already. And we are trying also to interact with them as much as possible and to invite them to our small events at what we are doing in a different part of the world. Because we have, every year we do one event in China, we do one event in the United States of America, one event in the European Union, one event in Arab world or in Africa. And also we have our global Baku forum. And in between of them, we do have high-level missions, which is fact-finding missions that the number of our members are visiting different countries where there is a crisis or where there is need to use experience of our members.
And to supplement all of that, you also are very active on the publications front. In 2020, I believe you launched your main journal, Global Policy Analysis. Talk a little bit about what that's been like, because it's a very elegant publication where you really go into some, as mentioning here per the forum, a lot of these very complex themes, whether it's non-traditional security, conflict resolution, and so forth, resilience of the environment. What's it been like producing this publication?
Actually, it was an idea came up from our secretariat that we need to use an experience of our leaders, our members, because they are the best persons, like, to be able to comment and to write something op-eds on certain issues. And so far, when we started making research, and it appears that many members are very much interested to write about the region, about the thoughts about on certain issues. And that's why we came up like on the topics, every publication being based on interest of the current world affairs. And we did like, almost 10 publications we had so far, but we are also, and there are many members, like, over 100 members that they've been writing our op-eds, from Gordon Brown to President Vaidevika Preberga to Walter Zattlers and Yves Leterme, Tzipilivny. And you can find every single person who is writing there. And also we do have a publication which is bringing up reports from every single event that we are doing. But we do have also a very interesting part that we have a video reports also, as well as. And anyone can log into our YouTube channel, and they can follow up on there. From every event, we are bringing up a YouTube 10 minutes or 5 minutes, 5 up to 10 minutes video reports, which is explaining about the importance of the event and the topics and the thoughts of each leader. I think that, we are trying to cover as much as possible, like different generations and also different group of interesting people.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful journal, and I've been taking a look at it in anticipation of our discussion. So it's just another, I get it. It shows another important piece of how, you're leveraging this amazing thought leader set to not just at the conference, but to get this information out there and get the world thinking on these critical issues. So no, I applaud you for that. What's coming up in 2023? I mean, you just wrapped up the Baku Forum. Obviously, a lot of energy, a lot of major topics. But it's only April now. What's happening the rest of the year? I know you have fact-finding missions. You have other high-level meetings that come up, some web conferences. What else is going on that you can tell us about for the coming months in 2023?
Next week we're going to host economic forum in the Western Balkans in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we are going to host our special event in August in China on a climate change with Ban Ki-moon Foundation. And we have in September, we are always doing a high-level side event meeting next to the UN General Assembly, which is 22nd of September going to be. And then we are going to join the World Health Summit, which is in October in Berlin, co-organized with the World Health Organization. But we do have also our separate, we have upcoming trip to Shusha, which is newly a liberated part of Azerbaijan, in order to discuss about the construction, reconciliation, and the integration of the region, but also how we can have a more environmental friendly and sustainable economy in this part of the world. And then we are also going to have, depending on the issues, like, where we are having an invitation, but we expect to have also visiting a Secretary General of UN to discuss about the multilateralism issue as a crisis that the world is facing, and how United Nations can be helpful, and how our members can be helpful to the United Nations to deliver the right messages.
Outstanding.
And then we are going back to January, beginning of January to Geneva to host our another high-level meeting, which we have agreed with United Nations Office Geneva in partnership to host our meeting in Switzerland.
Outstanding. Yeah, it's a really amazing set of initiatives. I've enjoyed reading about you and the organization, and also Nizami Ganjavi as well, and learning about his poetry along the way. And just really, wishing you the best as you continue to move these very critical themes forward. If I could just wrap up, I was looking at some of his important quotes here. I enjoyed the one in the Book of Life. Every page has two sides. We human beings fill the upper side with our plans, our hopes, our wishes. But Providence writes on the other side, and what it ordains is seldom our goals. And I think, your organization has really sort of taken that particular quote and said, yeah, not everything goes the way we would like to see it on this planet of ours, but we got to bring the right minds together to deal with these global issues. And you're clearly at the epicenter of it all. So I applaud you again. For everybody that is going to be listening to this particular episode of the show on the podcast networks or watching on the YouTube channel, again, you've been listening to Dr. Rovshan Muradov, Secretary General of the Nizami Ganjavi International Center. Rovshan, I want to thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule to come and talk to us and educate us for a little while. Thanks for everything you're doing there. And as we like to say on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for so many people out there across the globe. Really, really great work you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and hope we will continue our communications.
Absolutely.